What up? It's Friday, it's time for a Q&A. Let's get started. This is from Mikey Dread FPV. He says, are there any plans for you to design your own frame? I've talked about designing something in the future, but honestly, like, I don't know, I just really like the Alien. There's no real reason I would switch from it. I've flown underslung battery. I'm just not a fan of underslung battery as far as putting a battery on top and keeping the GoPro there, especially with a session. It's a little harder to do top-mounted battery and a session if you don't have an elongated H-style frame, but the Alien is kind of like an H-style body with an X design, so you have all of those motors and everything, all that. I guess the structure of the quad is directed towards the center instead of on an H. It's kind of on the sides, front and back. I don't know. I don't think I'll do a frame, but I don't want to say that I won't and then do it, so possibly, who knows. This next one is from, let's see, Micbar. He says, hey Steele, how many quads did you lose and wear out last year? So I guess, 2016, we're talking about quads that I've lost or worn out to the point where I needed to change them or like retire them or whatnot. So I didn't lose any quads at all. As far as the quads that I did wear out, I guess you could say I probably replaced a lot of motors, mainly because of the soft aluminum that the 2206, 2300 Lumineers were made of, which I'll get to later. There's another question. And then as far as like ESCs, I've never replaced a KISS 24. I've replaced a couple top plates, a couple bottom plates on an Alien, and maybe 3 arms in that year. So not really killing too much stuff. Obviously a lot of props, especially with the HQ5040x3, the old ones, those are snapping like freaking like just hotcakes all over the place. The V1S, honestly, I've probably only gone through about 15 sets, and I've been flying those for about, I don't know, a month and a half now. So that's pretty good considering how much I fly and how many, I don't know. Yeah, I just think the V1S is a little more forgiving. You can fly it without having to change props because it doesn't necessarily throw a blade, but it might have a nick in it. But my motors seem to handle those nicks a little bit better, and I don't have to change props if there's a tiny nick in it, so I can fly it a little bit longer and it doesn't actually show up in the video. So yeah, not too much stuff has been killed, but some stuff has been killed, obviously, because you fly at 60 miles an hour all the time, you crash into concrete, doing all that kind of stuff. It's gonna happen. I killed a lens too at Drone Nationals, but yeah, I just hit a thing, killed a lens on the FPV camera. That was it. This is from Critter, K-R-I-T-T-U-R. That's pretty cool. Critter FPV. He says, hey Steele, can your new motors handle 6S LiPos? I doubt it. I'm just gonna go ahead and throw that out there. They're 2300 kV. They're rated for like 35 amps max. I'm pretty sure you're going to be pulling over that with 6S, probably not. Alright, so the next one is from Dane Pickens. He says, do you ever use signal repeater stations to extend your flight or your video range? I have only used a repeater, not a repeater, but sorry, a ground station in like one instance, as that was flying with a long range wing. With my juggernauts and stuff, sometimes I use 2.4 video, and obviously I'm using UHF, which is the TBS Crossfire 900 megahertz for radio control. That stuff, typically I don't need a ground station. Video, I do need a ground station because I'm using the TBS ground station with the little 5-inch screen, and I don't know, it's a pretty cool setup. And I'll use a pepperbox antenna or a crosshair antenna, sorry, and I'll just aim it in a direction and fly out that direction. But with a mini quad, honestly, we're not going very far. At most, I might go a quarter mile, half a mile at most. So I don't necessarily need that. I can get away with running the receiver inside my goggles. And now with the LaForge, obviously, I've been running that for a while. You have a directional and you have an Omni. So I'm running the Omni, and it's basically on that most of the time. If I need to go specifically in an area, then I have that higher gain. I just aim that directional up the mountain or through the hallway or whatever I'm trying to fly through, and I can go through it without any problems. So yeah, I don't use repeaters or ground stations or anything. This guy is King's FPV. Says, how many Lumineer 22 or 2350s have you killed? I kind of talked about this earlier. The aluminum was a little bit softer on the Lumineer 2206, 2350, so I was going through those pretty frequently. Not necessarily because of the soft aluminum, but because of the bell, the ring on those things, the actual black ring that goes around the outside that says 2206, 2350 kV on it, it would slip down. It would actually detach from the top where the 5mm shaft is, and it would rub on the base of the motor, and it would cause it to bind, and then you would have to replace the bell. And yeah, that was really the main issue with that motor. It wasn't necessarily that the magnets or anything would slip or that you would bend it. It was kind of a weaker motor in the sense of that the aluminum was a little less durable than some of the other aluminums that are out on the market. But at the same time, the main issue was the ring slipping down, and I had quite a few of those. So I have a box of about, I don't know, 25 that the ring slipped on throughout the last year. So I haven't killed any of my motors yet. So it's been about a month and a half now since I've been flying them, maybe even 2 months. I don't even know, maybe even longer than that. Sorry, I was flying them at Drone Nationals, so yeah, I haven't killed any yet, so we'll see how long that goes. This is from KK Harm, I guess, KK Harm. It says, what do you think about using bullet connectors for your quads, drones, motor, ESC? I've seen this in a few YouTube videos. I'm assuming he's talking about between the ESC and the motor there's a bullet connector. Now, this used to be a thing back in the early days when I got into this. They would send out all the motors with bullet connectors on the ends, and then they would send out ESCs with bullet connectors on the ends as well. So you didn't have to solder. You weren't soldering directly to the ESC, and you weren't soldering directly from the motor to the ESC, vice versa from the ESC to the PDB or whatever. So basically what you're doing is you're adding a weak spot. When you crash those connectors, they're basically just pressure fitted, so you're going to eventually wear those things out. So I don't like to take any risks, because if you lose a phase in a motor, it's a 3-phase motor. If you lose a phase, it doesn't act right and it doesn't fly anymore. So if you lose a phase during something like diving down a building or flying in some area where if you crash you're going to lose the quad, then I would prefer to go direct solder and make sure that there is no possible way that anything is going to happen. And like I said, I've been flying quads. I told you earlier that I've been flying quads for over a year and not really breaking much and not really having any problems, aside from obviously me crashing and making things break, like crashing and breaking frames or crashing and hitting an arm on concrete or bending a motor or something like that. Nothing happens because I don't intentionally or unintentionally crash into something. I have never had a particular situation where I'm flying and the quad malfunctions out of my control. So, and I think a lot of that attributes to how I build these things and how I make sure that I pay every attention to detail and make sure everything is perfect. That way when I go out and fly, I know that it's not going to have a problem. And when I do it right the first time, I don't have problems forever. The quad that I'm flying right now, I've been flying for 6 months. I've never changed an ESC. I've never changed a flight controller. I've never changed a motor on it. I changed motors on it because I changed motors from one motor to the other motor. But as far as like motors go, I've been prototyping with this particular quad with my motor since the very beginning. And I've only changed motors because I wanted to try a different motor. I've never changed a motor because I crashed into something and broke a motor. I've only changed one bottom plate and I've only changed one arm in that amount of time. So you got to think, 6 months, I've only changed a bottom plate and one arm. And it's like, holy crap, how does that happen? Once you build it right the first time, it lasts. It does stuff. It does what you expect it to do, and when it does what you expect it to do, then it lasts, because you can actually go, hey, when I do this, it does that, and I don't want it to do that, so I'm just not going to do that one thing that caused it to do that. So I'm going to fly around it, and that's kind of the whole thing of getting used to something. You fly something for so long, you get used to it, you know all its little nuances, its little quirks, and you can fly around those quirks and make stuff look good on video, or you can just avoid crashes because you understand the aircraft so well. It's like someone driving a race car and knowing that one race car very particularly, and then getting into something else and having to relearn it, where if they just flew or drove in whatever they did in the beginning, then they would be a lot more comfortable with it. So I know there are people out there that can get in anything and just drive it to its max potential, or get into anything and fly at its max potential, and I can do that for the most part, but I prefer to do something and fly something that I'm comfortable with, and that's kind of why I've stuck with what I have over the years. So this is from Ellie. Hi Steele, love your flying. Question, are you tempted to upgrade to the Hall Effect gimbals? Thanks. So actually I have upgraded to the Hall Effect gimbals. I have them in my Tyrannus and I freaking love them. It's weird because when I got it I was like, ooh, these are really stiff, and I'll probably do a video on it honestly in the next couple days. I don't know, we'll be in Mexico again next week, and I don't know how many videos I'm going to get out next week, but I can tell you that I will do kind of a review or talk about at least the Hall Effect M9 gimbals for the Tyrannus and also the QX7 by Free Sky as well, because they did send me one of those, which is another person's going to ask me that. But the Hall Effect gimbals, They're amazing. The tension is really stiff from the factory. I loosened it all the way. The stick ends are great. It's actually gone back to the Futaba style stick ends, so it doesn't use the Spectrum gimbal stick ends anymore, so it's not that little puny thing. It's actually the fat, like almost the hollow shaft on your motors these days. But you know, I really enjoy high quality products, and I like these Hall Effect gimbals. I went out yesterday, I swapped all my batteries out for new batteries, so I'm running new batteries, and I put in the Hall Effect gimbals, and it was like basically the whole new world, that fucking song. Yeah, that was what was going through my mind when I was ripping at the trailer park. This is Bustin' Props FPV. He says, yo Steele, can you do a review on the new QX7? Basically, yes, I have one. It's right over there. And I will be doing a review on it and talking about it. It's a great radio. I haven't had any problems with it. I'm going to do some range tests with it to make sure it's like comparable to the Tyrannus. I'm sure it is. But as far as the feel goes, I love it. It's a little bit wider. It doesn't fit in the case that I use to carry my Tyrannus. And I do wish it had the Hall Effect gimbals, but obviously they're going after a budget radio. It's $120, so you can't complain for the quality that you're getting for 120 bucks, especially with that. I think it's better quality as far as the features that are involved than the Tyrannus, but I like the form factor of the Tyrannus, and I like the fact that you can modify that too. I guess I don't know. It's a little bit wider. I'm used to something a little bit narrower. I can get used to that, but I'm just not used to it yet, and I don't want to switch just yet. I may end up freaking just strictly using that radio because I don't know. I'll talk about it in another video. So this is from Superhero FPV. He says, Steele, what do you do when you start to get bored with flying? Tough not getting into habits. So basically, I'm assuming he's asking to say, like, what do I do when, like, I don't know, FPV, it's boring to me. So I have a lot of hobbies. I like to sing, I like to play guitar, I like to drive cars, I like to hang out with my friends, I like to play things. I don't know, I play games, I play video games, Xbox, whatever. I do all kinds of things. I don't really get stagnant when it comes to FPV. Obviously, and FPV is obviously FPV has opened up a lot of stuff in my life anyways. As far as photography, videography, going out, like I like taking pictures now, I like taking videos, I like coming up with concepts. So it's not necessarily that I do get bored with flying sometimes, and that's when like my creative mind comes out and it makes me want to do something like putting a sticker on a building from a quad, like using the quad for something else besides just flying around in an open area. And that's kind of why I enjoy making YouTube content, and I enjoy creating stuff for you guys to watch, because it's actually another hobby of mine that I can divert to when I'm not solely psyched on flying FPV, because that is something you can't stay psyched on one thing forever. You always get bored with something. You always want something new. You want some kind of release into some other area, and it's really hard to do if you don't have a diverse variety of things that you're good at or necessarily capable of doing. So when I go out and fly and I'm bored, it's like, oh fuck, whatever, I'm gonna go over here, I'm gonna throw a pine cone at this tree, or I'm gonna start bottle flipping, or doing something that keeps me preoccupied or makes me smile. Really, like everything that I do, I try to do because it makes me smile. And FPV is something that it makes me happy one day and it pisses me off the next day, and I try to maintain the smiles into FPV, and it is one of the only hobbies that I have been psyched on for a long period of time. I have been in the past where I get psyched on one thing and I stay psyched on it for a very short amount of time, maybe 3 to 5 months, and then I move on to something else. Where I will say that skateboarding I was psyched on for 15 years. Freaking rock climbing, I'm still psyched on. It's been 5 years, and FPVs, I'm about 3 years in now. And it is something that obviously has changed my entire life path. And I don't know, I think it's awesome, and I will continue to do it. Let's see if we can get a couple more in before the battery dies on this camera. This is from Zulum. Hey Steele, what do you think about, what music do you listen to apart from the royalty-free music that you use on your YouTube and stuff? So I have a crazy list of artists that I like listen to. It changes all the time, but for the most part, I'll just go through my like Pandora list here. This is kind of what I listen to on a regular basis. I'd say the Cardigans is one of my favorite bands right now. The Hush Sound is a really cool band. Portishead, Radiohead, Cake, Big Gigantic, Maroon 5, Muse, The Bird and the Bee. Let's see, Massive Attack, Chris Cornell, Big Black Delta, Shiny Toy Guns, Big Data, Sneaker Pimps, Panic at the Disco, OK Go, Justice, Korn, Hooverphonic, Miss Lee, Paramore, I don't know, like No Doubt, Gorillaz, a lot of stuff. I don't know, I just have a crazy battery died. Anyways, and let's see a couple more. Rachel Yamagata, Garbage is a really good band. I really like Garbage a lot. Lily Allen, Sarah Bareilles. I like a lot of female singers. I think, I don't know why, I think I have a thing for female singers because I like to see females in pain for some reason, because I think I've had my heart broken a lot in the past, and I like when females sing about, when they sing about getting fucking annihilated heart-wise. Yeah, that's about it. But anyways, I really enjoy music. Music is one of my passions. I pride myself in the music that I listen to, and I pride myself in the content that I create. And I think to create good content means having a particular taste in music and how that content comes out. Obviously, it's all personal taste, but I feel like I have a grasp on what is quote-unquote cool for me anyways, and I enjoy that a lot. So yeah, having a good selection of music to base off making music or making content is really cool. And I also use a lot of those bands for reference when I play music. Obviously I play Adele and Maroon 5 and Muse and all kinds of stuff when I like to sing and play, so those are bands that I've taken a lot from as far as their personal, like watching them grow into what they are today, because I've been fans since the very beginning, and also the movements that these bands make, like Rage Against the Machine. A lot of these bands have helped me through a lot of hard times. Like I went through a bad breakup 5 years ago or so, and Muse was like this thing that I got fixated on, and it really helped me through just staying focused on music. So music is amazing. I can't tell you how much music has helped me in my life, but these days, I go in and out of phases on what kind of music I like, and right now it's just all over the place. I do like a lot of the music that I put in my videos. Obviously, I wouldn't use it if I didn't like it. Sorry, that was a long rant on music. Eduardo Garcia. So this is, do you carry a soldering iron in your backpack? I saw this one in an earlier video. You replaced a motor mid video. It got me curious. So yeah, I do have a soldering iron in my backpack. I carry it around with me. It's a soldering iron called the TS100. I think you can buy it on Banggood. It's like a little tiny soldering iron that heats up to 300C in like less than 15 seconds or some crap like that. It runs on a 4S battery. It's super tiny. It's like the size of a ballpoint pen, and you check it out. It's in my link description below. It's called the TS100, and holy crap, best soldering iron I've ever bought. It literally rivals my Hakko right there, except the Hakko goes up to about 900 degrees, which I don't know what that is in Celsius, a lot, a million Kelvin, and yeah, you can use that for particular PDBs that are a little bit thicker and require a little bit more heat without pulling pads and stuff like that. So let's go on to the next one. This is from Sriracha FPV Q&A. How much money have you spent on the hobby? This is not a weird question, it's a crazy question, because I have thought about this before and I'm like, wow, how much money have I actually spent out of my own pocket on this hobby in general? And I seriously think it's close to $35,000, honestly. Like in the beginning, I would say to get into the hobby, I had to spend at least $10,000 to get into at the level that I wanted to get into. I mean, my first purchase from Get FPV was $3,700, and that didn't include the Discovery Pro that I bought on eBay at the time. That just included the Blackout, it included the Tyrannus, it included all the gear that I needed, all the props that I needed, all the batteries that I needed, all the stuff that I bought, a charger, a charging station, a power supply, all of the stuff that I needed to get started and make sure that I wasn't buying cheap and I was going to outgrow it quickly. And obviously I did outgrow a lot of the stuff that I bought really quickly. I mean, at the time, T-motors were $43 a piece for an 1806 2300. So you can imagine like the price range of stuff. I mean, I think Gym Fan freaking 5030s were like $5 for a set of 4 or $7. It was like, I think it was $6 for a set of 4 or some crap like that. We were paying a lot more in 2014, 2015 when I was just getting into this hobby. So, I mean, a lot of money was spent, a lot of time was invested in learning how to do this stuff, because back then there wasn't people like me putting stuff out on YouTube. There was basically Boris B, Metal Danny, and Sharpoo, who was just getting started, and he was just making flight videos, but Metal Danny and them would at least put in the description the gear that they used, and it's like, oh, crap, Middle Danny's using Spider ESCs now, or Boris is using Spider ESCs. And honestly, Boris was like the main guy. Boris B, I don't know if you've heard of him, but he is the guy, the Betaflight guy. If you guys are into Betaflight, he is the one that created Betaflight. Super cool guy. Honestly, I wouldn't be where I am without Boris. And I feel like all of his stuff, like all of his 210 or the Blackout guys, all the Blackout stuff that was set up on there, like the what ESCs they were using, what motors they were using, what props they were using. I just based all of my builds off of what Boris was using, and when I did that, my stuff actually flew, and that's kind of what I'm trying to replicate now. Like there are a lot of pilots out there that will tell you, oh, you need this motor because this motor does this amount of thrust, and you need to fly 6-cell because 6-cell makes your quad so powerful that you can do one punch out and fly to the moon, and you can hang inverted for 3 days as the momentum of the quad pulls you towards the gravitational pull of the moon. I mean, I don't need that stuff, honestly, because if you don't know how to use it and you abuse the power, you can burn up all the electronics that you've just spent a lot of money on. So a lot of my stuff might be considered underpowered, or it might be considered one thing. Honestly, it works for me, it does what I need it to do, and it's also very reliable. I basically am putting together a kit that is very powerful and very reliable, and that's why I can fly a quad for 6 months without burning up ESCs or burning up motors and stuff like that. And I attribute that kind of mentality coming from Boris, in that sense that, yeah, he was pushing the limits, he was pushing the edge on what loop times you could go and how many motors you could, or what size motor you could run and what size prop you could run. I mean, they were pushing the limits. They were going to 4-cell. That was like unheard of. Everyone was on 3-cell, and all of a sudden Boris is on 4-cell, and it's like, holy shit, that's the fastest thing I've ever seen in my life. And we were running 0 camera tilt. It was basically just full throttle, look at the ground, and then pull back up, and that was the video. But yeah, I mean, a lot of that stuff is attributed to the people that I got into this hobby, and also, like, when you start growing a name for yourself and you start giving back to the community, you don't want to give somebody something that's like, oh, well, holy crap, my shit blew up within 30 minutes of buying it. What do you, like, you need to help me. Like, I try to do as much as I can, and all I try to do is say, hey, look, this is what I use. If you want to use it, cool. If you don't, go find someone else. There's a lot of Facebook groups now. There's a lot of YouTube content. There's a lot of online content. There's Reddit. There's multi-rotor forums all over the place. You can find so much information, but at the same time, you can get lost in the information, and that is kind of why I do these Q&As, so that people can understand a little bit of my background coming into the hobby, saying, oh, well, shit, I didn't even know that you could do this stuff because there wasn't information available. And now there's so much information available, it's so hard to find the information that you need. So yeah, I don't know. Sorry, I went on a rant there. Let's do, oh, okay, that was the last one. So thank you guys for watching and listening to me talk for a very long period of time. And I hope you enjoyed this Q&A Friday. If you want to see any other questions, you can put them in the comments below, and I will answer them next Friday. Sorry I can only get to about 10 to 15 questions a week, because I do go on long rants about particular questions, and it goes on forever, and I don't think you guys want to watch videos that are 90,000 years long. So anyways, hopefully I will see you guys on Monday and Wednesday. I'm assuming I might only be able to make it on Monday with a video from Mexico that I plan on editing this weekend, because I will be traveling all of next week, but I hope I can get videos for you guys during the week, at least Instagram updates. So if you don't follow me on Instagram, you can check my Instagram out. It's Mr. Steele FPV. And thank you guys for watching. I really enjoyed talking to you. This helped me a lot. I mean, I felt like I was not in a good mood. Now that I've talked to you guys, I'm in a better mood. So thank you, and have a good night.